Okay, let me do an update about my appointment yesterday. I'll start out by saying it was exhausting because I had 3 appointments back to back. The first one was with the radiation oncologist, the second one was for the CAT scan, and the third one was for the third one was with the surgeon. I went in to see the radiation oncologist and sat there for quite a while. The nurses came in, they took some information. I had also explained to one of them that I wanted to have the radiation treatments at a place closer to my home because there is one of their facilities is a 10-minute drive from my house, and the one I've been going to is about a 45-minute ride. So I figured if I was going 5 days a week for 6 weeks, that it was going to be really difficult to be driving an hour-and-a-half round trip each day, plus the time of the treatment, and everyone's telling me I'm not going to feel well, I'm going to be exhausted, I'm going to have other issues, and well, which brings me to some of the other things. Well, let me digress for a moment from the rest of the story. One of the things was when I was originally supposed to see the radiation oncologist in Manhattan, I was told that I would just be seeing him once, but I could have the treatment out here, no problem. I assumed the same thing was true for this doctor that I was seeing in Comac, but I wanted to have the treatments done at the other facility of theirs. I had mentioned to the surgeon that that's what I wanted to do because, once again, it would just make life easier, and especially if I wasn't feeling well and anybody had to take me, all they had to drive was 10 minutes. So it would be easier for everybody. And they told me no problem, but then when the doctor came in, the radiation oncologist, they told me that they were going to have to send me to somebody else to have another appointment with a radiation oncologist at the other place. I didn't understand it, didn't make sense to me, but so be it. So at that point, I'm talking to this doctor who is not going to be involved. She was Asian, and I mention that only because it's relevant in the sense that she had an accent. So she started to tell me what to expect with radiation therapy, and that my first session would be something called a simulation. And they would basically do the whole setup, and they would make that mold to make sure that they had exactly the right part of my body and had me in the right position. And then she told me that they would, at that point, do a tattoo, which she said would be the size of freckles. So I would have tattoos showing exactly where they had to position me for this. What she told me, and again, I was not all that aware of the side effects of the radiation before surgery because the surgeon had sort of made very light of it, saying it was going to be much better and much less damage or chance of damage to any other organs at that point. But from the time I went to see Dr. Mackey, and he mentioned side effects that I could have that involved possibly bowel, possibly bladder, possibly other things, I started to think about it, and I certainly had my concerns. So I was a little bit discomforted by all of it, especially after talking to my brother Steve, and I'll tell you about that afterwards. But anyway, now she started to tell me that she was going to, she thought she could, I don't remember the word she used, salvage, save, something, half of the bone. And I was like, what? What does the bone have to do with it? Nobody ever mentioned the bone before. So now what she was telling me, in essence, the way I perceived it, was that the bone was going to be radiated as well, which could. I said, how does that affect me? And she said, I heard, and my friend Linda heard her say, blackout. And I said, blackout? I can't black out. I'm thinking I'm going to try to go to work, or I'll be in my car and I'm going to black out. That's where the accent came into play. When I said to her, because she said to me, it's not a big deal, don't get upset. And I said, black out? She was saying blood count, by blood count. But it's all in the delivery. When I used to work in hospitals, I always said, doctors, nurses, any providers of medical care should be required as part of their training to be patients. As if they were really patients, so they could feel and see what it was like from the patient's perspective. Because it's all in the delivery, folks. If she had said to me, there could be some impact temporarily on the on the bone marrow because it's produced in the bone and because we're going to be radiating the bone, that could cause your blood count to go down for a while. But she just blurted out blood count, which, as I say, in my mind, started out to be blackout. And so that I was not happy. And then she said to me, you're getting so upset. Why are you getting upset? And I thought it was one thing. I had pretty much made up my mind I was going to sail right through this radiation part of it, and that I was going to move on to the surgery and then get well and everything was going to be fine. But here she was throwing something else into the mix that I had never heard before, and it terrified me. Not a single other doctor ever mentioned the bone. So there I am, and I am getting more and more upset. I mean, I don't know how old the woman was. She seemed very nice. She seemed knowledgeable enough. She looked like she was 12 years old. And of course, the older I get, the younger people look. So that, I'm sure, is a factor of it. But I just was not comfortable in the end. And, oh, then I mentioned to her, it's too bad that the proton therapy is not available to me, that my brother had told me about. What he had explained to me was that proton therapy for radiation, instead of the typical, for this type of radiation, it's called IMRT. It's image modulated radiation therapy, and it's used for this kind of tumor, apparently. They do have other methods, but this is the one for mine. And the difference with that is, he said, if you think of the x-rays coming through the beam, he said it's energy. With a typical x-ray, it goes into wherever it's being aimed at, and it will leave energy everywhere along the way to and through the target. So as much as you try to pinpoint where it's going, it leaves a trail of radiation on its path. This is my perception of what he said. So if it's not scientifically exactly the way it is, you're going to have to forgive me. But this is my layperson's extrapolation of what he had said to me. But he said the difference is with the proton therapy, it only affects the end point. So they are specifically targeting something. The beam goes through and into the target. It doesn't deposit radiation anywhere along the path, only at the end point. That made a lot of sense. So I was very excited at finding out what the possibility was of having that. Turns out there is only a facility in New Jersey, which is the next state, and it's a long distance from my home. And the only way that I could do that, if in fact the insurance paid for it, which there's a really good chance it would not, is that I would have to live out in New Jersey. This facility is in Somerset, New Jersey. I would have to live out there 5 days a week for the next 6 weeks, well, the 6 weeks of the treatment. I can't do that. I don't have the money to live my own life, let alone stay at some place and pay for that. So it's really sad that they have something that can be so much safer for you, and it is safer for this type of tumor, I'm told, because when it's near the organs, you want to be careful that it does not affect your organs. It doesn't affect, they did tell me that I could have a problem with diarrhea because it could affect the bowel. I could have a problem, Dr. Mackey had told me I could have a problem with my bladder. So there were a lot of things that were a little bit on the frightening side about what it could do, what it could damage in the process of hopefully helping this. But it seemed to me that it was certainly worth doing if possible. They do have centers, proton therapy centers apparently, in different parts of the country, but unfortunately they are not in New York. I understand it's very, very expensive technology, and I'm sure the treatments are a lot more. So once again, insurance might not pay for it anyway. As my brother explained to me, the reason that insurance companies won't always pay for it and why it becomes an issue is that they are saying that it's not, they haven't done the clinical testing to prove how well it works. Well, my brother said the unfortunate part of doing the clinical testing to make sure that it works is that it's a blind kind of test, which means half the people are getting the radiation, half the people are getting a placebo effect. So half the people can have their disease impacted negatively, perhaps devastatingly negatively, while trying to prove something to the scientific community. And that, to me, once again, as a layperson, makes zero sense. So it's okay to kill people along the way just to prove what they're saying is right. There has to be a better way. In any case, so going back, that was the end of my appointment with the radiation oncologist, aside from the fact that a nurse came in from the CAT scan department to bring me a drink that they told me I had to drink an hour before I had the CAT scan done, and she said it was the contrast, and I said, I very specifically, this was ordered without contrast. She looked at me relatively impatiently as if I was not the brightest light on the tree, and she said to me, you're not having IV contrast. This is a drink. Oh, well, I noticed it's a drink. It's in a big, huge vat. I'm not stupid. So I said, no. I said, what's in this thing? I said, the whole reason for my having the CAT scan without contrast is that I have a severe allergy to shellfish. If there is iodine in this, it could be a problem for me. So she tells me that she doesn't know what's in it, and at this point, she's getting really annoyed. And she's saying to me, so are you refusing it then? I said, yes, I'm refusing it. I'm not going to take something that can harm me to see if maybe it could help me or not, as the case may be. And the doctor had said that they could do the CAT scan without contrast. So they finally straightened that out, and then she told me that I might have to drink a lot of water, and she took off. When I was finished with this, I went back to the CAT scan department. I changed into their robe. I got into she came over and she said, your doctor said it was fine without contrast and you don't need the water, and she went by. So I had the CAT scan done, and I really was very anxious to know the results of that because that was the abdomen and pelvis, so I wanted to know if they saw anything that grew or what the story was with it. So after that, I had to go back to the surgeon, and that was my last appointment. What they had told me in the CAT scan department was they would have the results, the report, probably today, because this was done yesterday, but that she could see the actual films because it would be up on her screen in her office if she wanted to take a look at it. So I thought she might be able to do that, but she said she was not, and she told me to call her office today to try to get results. In the meanwhile, they scheduled me for a slew of other appointments between now and surgery. So I'm going to have a meeting with this additional radiation oncologist in the other facility, and that's next week. I have a meeting with the plastic surgeon the following week. I then I'll start the radiation at some point right around there, and I'll have that for 5.5 or 6 weeks or whatever it is. Then during the period of time that I am healing, in quotes, I will have all these other tests, including the MRI that I need before surgery, and that's scheduled for toward the end of June, and then I'll be going in for surgery. So that is the story, and a discovery that I made is that people in the medical profession, a lot of them, don't like when you ask questions. I consider myself an intelligent being, and I really want to know what's happening so that I can make an informed decision. I work in real estate. When I have a client who is a buyer, I will tell them everything I think they need to know so they can make informed decisions. This is my life. Wouldn't you think an informed decision might be a worthwhile thing? I do. So that's the story for now. I got 3 calls from her office this morning about scheduling things, and also about the MRI, which she told me has to be done at their facility. Their facility does not have the wide bore, so that ought to be a neat trick trying to pull that off. And they're telling me that I need contrast for that. But that's a different kind of contrast, and it's called gadolinium. That is what the contrast is. And they said it's totally different than the iodine. And I said to the girl, is there anything in that I could be allergic to? And she was dancing around the whole subject. And she said, it's not, if you're allergic, you have a proven allergy to shellfish, and it's not related to that in any way. You have nothing to worry about. I told them they would definitely need to provide me with something for anxiety when I go into that machine that is not the wide bore, and whatever. So they're doing 2 tests at that point. One is going to be pelvis, and the other one is going to be femur. And then I said to the girl in the office, why have they scheduled an MRI of the femur? The femur has never been mentioned before. I don't understand it. And she said, I said, the femur is the bone. It's not in the bone. It's not part of the bone. It's not on the bone. Why the femur? And she's telling me that the femur is the whole area. I said, no, the femur is the bone. So she says, no, it's the whole area where your thigh is. That's the femur. I said, the femur is a bone in your thigh. So we were not getting anywhere, and I could hear that she was starting to hyperventilate. I don't think I'm good for the blood pressure of people in the medical profession because I asked too many questions. In any case, in the end, I was told that it has to do with the mapping for the surgery to see exactly what will or possibly will or likely will be affected that they have to be looking for when they do, at that point, make the incision and see what they're faced with. I also want to talk to the doctor, and the girl tried to give me results, girl in her office, same one who told me the femur was the area, wanted to give me the results of the CAT scan, and told me that the CAT scan was, I forgot what she said it showed. She was reading stuff. It didn't make any sense, and it didn't really tell me anything. And then she mentioned something about lymphadenopathy, and I said, okay. I said, can you tell me the dimensions of it? Because there was a very slight adenopathy in the last one, and it was only 1 centimeter by 1.7. What is it now? And she didn't know, and she's looking at it, and she said, oh no, and then she's looking, and then we got disconnected. So whether that was for her sanity or it was an accident, I don't know. But she wound up calling me back, and I said, look, do me a favor. I said, have the doctor call me to give me the results of the CAT scan at her convenience. There's no rush. Whenever it's good. And she said, I'll have her do it at her earliest convenience. I said, that's not what I'm saying. I said, I don't want to stress the doctor. I am happy to do it at her convenience. Whenever it works for her, tell her to give me a call. I just want to hear from her. Does it look the same to her? Does it look smaller? Does it look bigger? Does it look like it moved? Just, I had the test. I'd like to know what it showed. I don't think that's too much to ask. What would you think? that's my story for today, and the beat goes on. So I will keep you apprised. I'm still absolutely having fun with my haircut. I pulled this side of my hair back today because when I was at the salon, they had these cute little bobby pin type clip things, and I thought it was cute, and I thought it would be nice to kind of pull one side back a little bit. I'm liking it. I'm having fun with it, and that's my story, folks. So take care. I hope you had a great day. Yesterday was stressful as hell for me. I really feel, if I drank, I would have had a drink by now. I don't drink. So, and I also told her, I said, maybe it's time for me to get a couple of anti-anxiety pills or whatever one gets. I said, I've never taken one in my entire life, but I think the time has come. And she said they don't like giving it because there can be other issues with it. She said, I'm a firm believer in chamomile tea myself. And I thought, you know, that's not a terrible idea. Maybe I'll buy some chamomile tea, and I will try that first because Lord knows I like the stuff that can't hurt you too. Take care, everybody. I hope the rest of the day is great. There was no rain today. It's an okay day. I'm a happy camper, and I'm on my way out the door to go to my friend's house to go pick out granite for her countertop before we put our house on the market in June. So I will talk to you soon. That's a mixed bag, by the way, because she's going to be moving away, and she's been my support system, so that's a little bit scary for me, but it is what it is. I love her too much to not want her to have the best life that she can have for herself, wherever she chooses to have it. For me, I'll cry alone. So I will talk to you soon, and any questions, holler. Any suggestions, make them, and I will see you. Bye-bye.